next, Dr. Moore is going to talk. I'm going to ask that we create 2 rows so we can stand in front and from here.
Let us open our hearts to the healing energy of the great heart of the great it. Whether you call that Buddha or Jesus or the Most High God, whatever name you address your higher power with, we invoke that flow of blessing from that reality to us today. And we ask that all of us pray for all these men in this group. I ask you to pray for me so that in my comments I can let my ego get out of the way and speak my truth, heart truth this time about our work together. So blessings from the Most High, and let's go to work.
And I'm going to ask each of you to put a blessing into this for the men who will touch it, and to take a blessing from it from the spirit beings that have blessed it for us. So just pass it around this way. I cherish this opportunity to speak to you for just a very few minutes. You know, the key important thing for us to think about as men in the international men's movement, as individuals, as men who are concerned about all the growing darkness in the world. I can say that there was one time that was a lot darker than where we are right now. It was in August of 1942, at the time right before the tide turned against the Axis powers in 1942. The forces of hate and domination were riding roughshod in 1942. This was the time of Guadalcanal. This was the time of the Battle of Midway. And so it was a huge darkness. And some other time I'll tell you more of what we should think about that. But our time is dark too. I gave a series of 3 lectures down in San Antonio just recently. And the first lecture was entitled The Flood, and the flood of anxiety and grandiosity that's permeating the world and issuing in incredibly aggressive hate in the world, incredible cruelty in the world. So this is a darkening time. Anyone that looks around, even in a shallow way, will see how much the darkening has been. For years and years, I've been trying to, from time to time, brief the Mankind Project leadership about how I think we should see the work of the MKP in the context of the healing of the challenge of the healing of the world, and trying to stand firm for the good, the true and the beautiful. Once more, you can think the flood of Noah. That's why I took that name for that lecture. So I talked about the way this flood manifests now, of grandiosity and anxiety that's making all of us crazy. My second lecture I did you know, some of you are familiar with the work I've done on the structure of the psyche and the way the male personality is structured differently from the female, and why the male structure gives us a way to understand the darkness of the ways in which men have abused their powers throughout history. And so I talked about the dynamics of that. I won't get into that today. I asked Christopher Pricing to bring our most recent catalog of all of my work to make it available to you should you be interested in pursuing it, learning something about it. But I'm not here to lecture on psychoanalysis and psychology today. And in the third lecture, my title was The Fellowship of the Golden Dragon. And by that I meant that there is actually a fellowship that already exists in this world. And it is those people who have opened up internally their hearts to the great heart, to the big love that's at the heart of the universe and that is the foundation of the universe. And each man here is sitting, dwelling already in the power and radiance of that great heart. And so I was saying it's not, we need to understand that we are not disconnected from the great heart of the universe. It's the most deep, real thing that is in us. And so our task is really to just sort of come to, or to wake up and to open our eyes. One of my favorite country rock bands in Chicago used to be Asleep at the Wheel. And I think we ought to think about being asleep at the wheel, because there's a lot of powerful forces in the outer world and in your inner world that want to keep us all asleep, so that we don't see the truth, so that we can't open up to the abundance that is given to us as our birthright. So I'd love to go into all that much more deeply, but what I wanted to do was something very specific and very limited today. Some of you know that I have been so graced and privileged in my life to have been involved in the beginning days of the International Men's Movement. I just wanted to tell you a couple of stories about that and why that leads me here today, and what leads me to be passionate about the importance of the work you all do and that we try to do together in this wonderful brotherhood. I'll set the scene. It was August of 1987. Some of you may have known something about the New Age idea of the harmonic convergence that was constellated, they said, in August of 1987. I knew nothing about this at the time. I was a self-satisfied full professor teaching psychology and spirituality. It would been my dream to do that. I had a thriving private practice of psychotherapy and psychoanalysis. And so I asked Margaret to go on a tour of Asia, to bum around Asia with me, to sort of celebrate and enjoy. We toured in many countries. Increasingly, as I toured, I was troubled by the things that you observe if you travel through the cities of the world. But the point that came like a flash of lightning into my brain was one morning in what was then known as Bombay, and our taxi driver that was driving Margaret and me around to show us the sites we might want to investigate in Bombay. He turned down this one street, and it was crowded by men, women, and children. So standing on all corners, as far as you could see, thousands of men, women, and children. The cab driver turned around to us and he said, "There are thousands of men, women, and children here, and you can have any of them to do with as you want." Ooh. I thought I had misheard. My hearing's a little bad, as many of you, my friends, know. And I said, "Excuse me, I didn't understand what you said." And then he repeated it. "You can have any of these men, women, and children to do with whatever you please with." And this was a huge trauma to my denial and my self-satisfaction. It was like you had taken a white-hot poker and poked it right in here, because I was able to actually see. I'd lectured on evil, the dynamics of evil, for years, and had become kind of an expert on the academic study of evil. But this was my first time when my eyes opened up and I could see the radical power of evil and how much it is fueled by uninitiated men. Men who involve themselves in the business of helping Moloch eat the children of the world. Sexual slavery for children. So that was the moment that my interest in male psychology changed from being a part of my research as a Jungian psychoanalyst, trying to understand more about the deep archetypal structures of the psyche. Just prior to that, I had made the discovery, which was decoding the deep structures of the self, archetypal deep structures, and why that shows us the differences between men and women in the path to integration. And I just was feeling good about what I consider to be a scientific discovery. But at that moment in Bombay, I saw the size of male narcissism and violence in the world, and I was practically psychotic from August 17th to October 17th. On October 17th, I was driving up Lakeshore Drive and going on my way to a faculty meeting. And what was going through my mind was, I can't believe I'm going to this. They won't talk about anything real. And what does this have to do with what I've just seen in Bombay? And so I said to God at that time on Lakeshore Drive, I don't have any idea of what I might be able to do to impact this situation. But if you will show me something that I could do, I will make every effort to engage this issue of the abuse of male power. And I'll tell you the longer version of that sometime, but the short version is that synchronistically, Robert Bly had gotten hold of my first lectures on the male archetypes. And he started using them. If you ever saw that video, A Gathering of Men, an interview by Bill Moyers of Robert Bly, that's when Bly actually introduced my work on masculine psychology to the world and invited me at that point. This is This is in 1988 and 89. This was before the King, Warrior, Magician, Lover book was published. And I was in fear and trembling about going to that first men's conference. But I had a dream right before that. I didn't know whether I was going to go. And my father came to me in the dream and he said, "It'll be all right. Why don't you go?" I'd never been to a men's conference before. And I was not sure about being with a bunch of men in the woods. So,
Show of hands who
so anyway, turns out that the universe or the Buddha or God or something arranged synchronistically for all these connections. And since then, since late 1980s and early 90s, I have been passionately involved in trying to articulate a vision for healing men, bringing them to their optimum self-realization so that they might be channels for good and healing in the world, that they might be channels for showing the world that men can in fact combine power and love, because it has been taught by a lot of people that a man can't be both powerful and loving. And so I started trying to lift that up back then, and so for years I've been trying to do that. Now let's cut to my encounter with my first encounter with the MKP. I always had been an admirer of what the MKP was doing, and had not done a weekend yet. But I always had this gut sense that the MKP was the paradigmatic model for what needed to happen in this world. That unlike any other men's organization, it is radically inclusive in terms of who can become a part and become a leader gradually in this. So red and yellow, black and white, gay and straight, this body has sought to put out the invitation to the banquet for men all over the world now. And I just want to say to you from my heart, I decided, I spoke to the leadership of the MKP in 1995. I told them, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not looking for a men's organization. I'm not looking for another brotherhood that has the same promise or as much promise as this brotherhood, and that I was just going to put it out there. I think you guys are the men that the world has been looking for to model what it means to be a man in the face of this deluge of horror. And I just wanted to come and just reiterate that. I never felt that as strongly as I feel today about that. I'm going to be 72 in August. I have a lot of sadness about how ineffective I have been in my leadership of men in the world to see what is possible if we men really work together with fierceness and stood with both feet into our commitment to this work. But I check in with much hope and anticipation for what you men and we, all of us men in this brotherhood, can evoke in the world together. You know, Carl Jung believed that the key hope there is for the world was that for enough number of people to do the work they need to do to open up to the transpersonal realities, to the spiritual realities, to a higher level of energy, to be portals for that energy. Jung believed you didn't have to have all the people. He believed you didn't have to have 50% of the people. You didn't have to have, think like Saul Alinsky. I don't know whether you ever knew Saul Alinsky, the organizer. Saul Alinsky thought all you need is a very small percent of radically, fiercely committed people to turn things upside down. And I think he was right about that. And so, what's the importance of this work that we do together and we seek to nurture as we can, as long as we can? It is to set the goal of, we could even use a little mystical term. And how many men, Glenn, do we have around the world so far as initiates?
Almost 60,000 now.
Okay. Well, in all these spiritual traditions, they say 144,000 is the number of the elect that have to be working together in order to initiate a new age. So I think we ought to just say, okay, 144,000. As soon as we can find those men and reach out to them, because the actual scientific, I don't have time to talk about it today, but there's a lot of hard science reasons now to know that influence at a distance is not only possible, it happens all the time. We're all connected in a great energy field in the world. The fact that we're connected is not in question scientifically. The question spiritually is, I wanted to show you this little book that I ran onto synchronistically just about a week or so ago. It's called Heart Without Measure. It's about the great work as the great esoteric teacher Gurdjieff taught. So as I looked at that book, I thought I got to bring my brother's attention to this little book because it's simple, it's straightforward, it is readable, and it lifts up the fierceness, the capacity and courage to move against our spiritual laziness, and to understand that we will always have to fight our temptation to spiritual and psychological laziness. That's built in. We just need to get used to it. And we need to take a word out of the lexicon of the great philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who says that in order to live, really live joyfully, live strongly, is to get both of your feet into the big yes to life and the world and your leadership. Both feet with fierceness into your life, your joy, your leadership. No matter what the world is throwing at us personally and institutionally, Nietzsche says, don't give that more power than it actually has. Go straight at it and cut through it with your clarity and your courage. I think it's possible that this MKP can be a vanguard of people who get that fierce. Now, you and I all know we've had a little problem with getting a full masculine erection. a full spiritual erection. I'm talking about the spiritual and psychological erection that is a symbol of male strength, of loving male power. And I believe it's possible for the MKP in the decade ahead. I'm having a heart procedure on Wednesday morning early, 7 o'clock. I appreciate your sending me some of your angels from your tribes. I intend to stay alive so I can partner with you till I'm 90-something. Should that not happen, though, I am wanting to just offer you a truth from my heart. I believe it is possible for the MKP to lead in a much more fierce and effective way, and coming out of a big love. And so let me just meditate a moment, because I'm gonna bring this to a close now, and invite you, as we have time today, to interact a little bit. If I were to ask you, let me just do this, and then I'll stop. Raise your hand if you think the MKP Global is serving at 100% of its potential. 75% of its potential. 50% of its potential. 25% of its potential. 10% of its potential. You know, they used to call us the New Warrior Network. I got attacked a lot for saying good things about the archetype of the warrior in the early days of the men's movement. But the truth is, you know, in some ways our outfit has been the New Lover Network. We've really, in a wonderful way, concentrated on opening the hearts of men and channeling love into the world. But if we're going to achieve 144,000 men in the next decade, we're going to have both feet into it and be fierce, draw on some of our really noble warrior juice. A warrior juice grounded in, strengthened by the heart. You have my pledge that insofar as is possible, in this next decade, I'm going to do what I can to be actually much more present than I've ever been in my life through my first 70 years, and to work together with you and seeing if we can deploy more of our actual potential. And so this is the truth that I wanted to speak to you today. That the global men's movement, there's nothing more important than the work it does. Because until the hearts of men are opened, and until that helps them wake up their moral seriousness, if that doesn't happen, the narcissism and violence and cruelty and the war against children is going to continue to get worse. In 1995, I summarized that I had believed that things were going to get worse because of the decline of male initiation in the world. Unfortunately, I was right. And things are much worse today than they were in 1995. And but I have no despair whatsoever. I have confidence in all of you and your leadership, and I have a dream that we could stand and deliver as men. So what would I like to see? I would just like to see us become whole, powerful, and loving men. If we do that, the rest will follow. So that's my truth for the day. Thank you.
First off, I'd like to say, Robert, again, publicly, thank you for coming.
My blessing.
Speak a little louder.
I'm going to try. One of the challenges that I've been faced with from the moment I said yes, about 22 years ago, I guess, coming to this work, was fear of white men. Well-founded, I was very well educated within each experience that led me to believe that I was not safe. That coupled with a father who was born in 1905, who was a magician bully, and instructed me and gave me the responsibility of protecting my sisters and my own dignity. The moment we moved into a 99% white community that I grew up in. I called all around the nation and asked the questions, so where are the black guys? You know, where are they at? Who are they? I need to talk to them. The reason that I did that was because I was afraid of how I would occur. And I wanted some assurance that this amazing event I saw at a homecoming was real, and that it superseded any divisionism, any smaller than, blacker than, the best. So ended up talking to some guys on the phone for about a year. There were 9 of us. And we had the good fortune to all meet in Memphis to do a training together, a warrior weekend. And we did our jobs, did our thing, the schedule got to the point of a break, and we all stood up and walked into another room and broke down into tears. And we didn't know why we were crying. It took a long time for me to understand the power of that moment. What it took time for me to understand was that I wasn't alone, and that there was a possibility for the impact of what this work does available to every man. It took a lot of years for me to get away from my smallness and my anger. You know, a new warrior training adventure for me was an opportunity to set fire to the room. I've not been anywhere that I've seen the level of heart and commitment occur with men, and even those men, those white men that are willing to say, I don't know what the fuck to do. I don't know how to fix this. And then also be in the presence of men and with good intentions that insult every time they open their mouth. I was sitting in my basement with David Lindgren, Warner Saunders, Jack Chapman was there, a couple of other guys. Hank Kinsey, yeah. And I was carrying this outrage, and I used to think it was just my anger. It was my pain. And Warner said something to me, and I can't just quote it, but in essence, he asked me what I believed about myself around the projections I thought I was getting. And I don't know if I'm saying that clearly, but in essence what it meant to me was, what are you full of right now? And I remember leaving that meeting, and that night standing in the shower, and I must have cried buckets. I felt seen. And I felt seen with something that I wasn't really seeing myself. It gave me permission to lighten the fuck up, you know? And look at men and see the hope in them, and not just catch them at their inexperienced level. Not just, I got you, around their, well, I don't know any black people, or I thought all black people did this, or, you know, and nailing them to the cross. And it was such a difficult line to walk because the things that I was seeing were real. I've seen experienced white co-leaders facilitating a black man and give him the pass. Walk up to me and say, here, you do it, because I don't know how to facilitate black people. I've been in places where I was attacked and men were laying for me before I got off the plane who I'd never met. And I know that to be a fact because they told me so 2 years later. The beauty of all of this is, I wouldn't trade a second of it, is that it allowed me to get out of my own swamp and stop substantiating my anger with stories that had already ended a long time ago. So I find myself coming back here. I tried to leave.
You technically did leave.
Thank you. I technically did leave for, what, a year, 2 years. And there is a calling in me, and I'm, you know, I said it to a smaller circle, or maybe I said it to larger, I can't remember now. That there's a part of me so hungry to be seen appropriately, to be seen for the gifts I have, who I am, what I can do, and how big my heart is. Well, I found that place here, and I've worked shoulder to shoulder with guys who have had a commitment that seemed to be stronger than mine around the same topic. So it's refreshing and worthwhile to have stayed. It makes me crazy to stay, and yet there's this tug I can't let go of. It's like if I'm not engaged and involved and assisting in some way with this kind of work, I can't look myself in the mirror. So I'm here in gratitude. I'm in here medicated. I think you might be able to tell. And I'm in here in pain, but I'm here. I'm here. I've not seen such beauty in the world that I've seen in these rooms and on these trainings. I've not seen such authenticity. I've not seen such surrender. I'll speak for this man. I can take a point to the death in the need to be seen as correct and right. And I see that in the world. I see what it's doing all over the world. And it's this place that I see men put down. They put it down. They confess. They surrender. And it is those moments that I live for here. And it's in you men that I see it. And you got my whole heart. You got my whole heart. There's times outside of these moments, I go away And my cynic comes up, oh, I gotta go to this meeting, and oh, these motherfuckers, somebody's gonna say some shit like, my little boy, and I just want to get up if I could and take this cane. And so I recognize that that's my own cynicism, but I cannot escape the truth that occurs here. And it's the truth that's sitting in every chair in this room. At every moment in your journey, I'm still on mine. I know goddamn well I got stuff I need to look at, don't want to look at, don't know I have. But the beauty of a well so powerful as this is mind-boggling. It also is heartbreaking because I see how things in the world could be different. I watch the news, and I work with these children. My daughter, youngest daughter, is a teacher. She worked on the west side of the school system. And to watch these kids knowing they're going to prison or to die or to become mothers is horrific, knowing what I know. How do I impart that? I've tried to do it systemically. I've tried to do it organizationally. I've tried to take people in. I've tried to get their attention. I've invited and invited. And the sadness in me is that it doesn't seem to move at the pace one would expect and that I hope. I then stand inside Folsom Prison and see these kids surrendering and confessing, finally. Double life plus 25 years. And you're looking at a young man tell a story. And it seems as though the things that he came to decisions around were absolutely inescapable. It was the only decision, the only way, that their dysfunction was the Tao. And so I'm banging on pretty good. I'll let this go. I'll leave you with the fact that I thank you for stepping up and continuing to step up. I make up your hearts are broken too, watching things you can't fix, or seeing men treat the world and each other in a way that seems that animals are kinder to one another. But I thank you for coming back here and saying yes to this October training and just saying yes at all. I guess that's all I got. Thank you. Oh, I did.
And I just wanted to share, so usually we have a staff meeting and it's 3 hours long, and I came up with the idea of just doing an hour and sort of doing our business. And my theory on the staff meeting is teaching the young guys, and you know, the senior guys have a lot of knowledge, but not too much enthusiasm. They're sharp. You know, I'm sharp. I could be at home though. And really open the staff meeting to everybody and invite Robert and really try something we've never done. So all you men that aren't on staff, really appreciate, I call it the elders specifically, just appreciate you coming down and being part of our learning. Because to me, that's the only reason I keep on coming back is I'm not where I want to be. I'm a lot better than what I used to be, but I'm not where I want to be. And I just want to share a couple stories. So when I got into work, like I said, in the small circle, you know, I would have never signed up if the guy had said spirituality. He tricked me into saying no to pushy women. I was like, dude, sign me up. And you know, when I got into work, you know, I used to always tell my son, you know, I used to meditate with him when he was very young and say, you know, one day we'll be warrior brothers. Right now I'm your dad. but we'll be brothers. I'll always be your older brother. Maybe I'll kick your ass, but we'll be brothers, not father and son. I went to the weekend. I thought, shit, I'm going to invite him. And I've been inviting him for 15 years. He hasn't come yet, and I'm totally okay with that. But at one point, I was talking to a mentor, and he said, you know, pay the $100, get on leader track, and you get leader feedback. And when I did it, I became a leader so quick, I didn't get much for my money. And I thought, leader feedback, that sounds really good. So I paid my $100. And I got feedback from, you know, guys from, always somebody from out of town that never met me. And some of these guys would give me feedback that was outstanding. And my goal in the staff is really to have everybody as leaders, to have a circle of leaders, and not be us and them. I'm hoping that you guys on staff feel that. So I believe that you can just learn a lot from the work, call it leader path or whatever, but just learn about yourself, and through that process possibly become a leader. Robert Moore was the guy that kept on saying, you've got to do it because your brother issue and this, and it's like, and if I wasn't, you know, I would have said no. My dad was passing away, and I went to a training in New York, and I said that if God didn't specifically, absolutely, clearly tell me why to stay on a leader track, because I really enjoyed senior staff stuff, not too much responsibility, a lot of fun, I would drop off the path. I hot sat once, and Bud gave me a not yet. It's a story I make up. Then he went on sabbatical, and I called him up, and I said, I'm going to sit again, and I'd rather go through you than around you, so if you can make it in, come on in, because he's a super sharp guy, and I thought could see through my shit. I went on that training, and I was talking to a guy, and he almost quoted Robert's reason that I should be on leadership word for word. I thought, okay, fine. That's the reason. So I hope all you men, like Robert asked for the wisdom from what to do, I believe that we can all help the world by going home and loving our families even, and our friends. And that's why I staff. Let's take a little break.
Bryce, can I say one quick thing
Yes.
before we do? I'm a rookie here.
Yeah, rookie.
Awesome. Loving the work. Glenn, you mentioned we have 60,000 men globally that are part of the MKB. And Robert, thank you. You mentioned 144,000 people required. I'm sitting here thinking that doesn't mean we're halfway, by the way, because I'm thinking is of that 60,000 men, how many men are actually still in the work? Because if it's only as it is in the group I went through in April, probably 6 men out of 18 is the third. 6 4 months in, I'm sure that falls away even further. I bet there's probably 15,000. And then, to me, it tells me the size of the piece of work isn't doubling from 60 to 120. It's gone from 15 to 144. And I'm thinking, hey, we've got a lot of work to do. I just want to throw it out.
yeah.
I had something on the point. Been really thinking about this. This is something I usually wouldn't do. I really have been touched by the testimony that you guys have been offering to this group. And it really touched me when you were saying that there were thousands of women, children that were there that they could do anything that they wanted to. But I want you guys to feel the trust that I have for you. So here I am, the little boy that I have in myself. I'm going to offer to you guys to do anything you want to use me, to be better, to create a new world. So what I offer to the men in this group and just MKP in general is that we use each other, and we've created a container where I can offer myself and sacrifice myself to you guys, and I know that wouldn't be used in a way that it's going to not help the world. So I offer myself, sacrifice me, use me, show me, pour into me, and we can pour into each other so that we can make a better world. And I think we can go out and get other men, but we've created a container with the 30,000 men that we have that are actively, that we can sacrifice ourselves to the work and to each other so that we can go out and be more fierce. I just offer myself to you guys.
Oh, thank you, Terry.
give you some feedback on just your strategy about equality and not creating the us and them. I noticed it in the first meeting, and I didn't understand it was deliberate. I thought it was just a style thing. And one of the things that was very different from the staffing, because I'm a rookie too, this is my second staffing, from April, was we went around the room and everybody said how many staffings they've done. And it was 100, 80, 50, and it separated the room into two groups. And I don't know if it was deliberate that you didn't do that.
It was deliberate.
It makes a huge difference.
Thank you.
At least for me, I can only speak for myself, but for me personally, it made an enormous difference.
Thank you.
And I was
I'd
just-
like to say something about, you may have seen our poster on the wall in the men's room about carrying the king archetype consciously. And I had a great mentor for this. Taught me how to bless, and I've been able to teach others how to bless or give them opportunities to learn it. And carrying the king, I think there are a few things overlooked, and that many of us would be more effective if we just considered a few ideas, do's and don'ts. You have to find your own style. Can't take somebody else's, but it can be taught. And so that's what we're hoping to do, and we're inviting everybody. The elders are putting it on, but this is for all of us, and we can learn a hell of a lot from you too about leadership and carrying the king archetype, which is always a temporary and part-time job.
John Everingham, for those of you that don't know him, he's brought a lot of very generative energy into this outfit for many years.
So I'd like to speak. I'd like to speak about this community in particular, Chicago. The Chicago community is unique unto itself. Not only are we the largest community in the world, we're the only one that have a brick and mortar building. Chicago is leading this organization, in my judgment, on every frontier. Our outreach to the world, how we do the ruthless self-examination. We got men here with balls. We do. If you want to have a place to really step up and be on the forefront of that, you do that, because I have not seen a better container anywhere in the world than right here. This is the crucible for me.
Crucible.
This is the cauldron that will lead this entire organization, in my judgment. Both feet in. Both feet in. Both feet in.
I'm thinking maybe we don't take a break. And then a couple more men might have to speak. I would like to hit something you said, Bob. Is it Bob or Robert? You know, for me, people always say, why do men quit the work? And you know, I always wonder why people stay. Quitting, I totally understand. It's not your wife, it's not your boss, it's not your brother, it's not your mother, it's not your dad, who are probably both dead, it's you. So I have to do my work. And just because somebody's not involved doesn't mean that weekend didn't slightly shift their life. So I think there's men that are active, and that there's men that have slipped, shifted, and there's men that drank the elixir, thought the Kool-Aid was drugged, and then forgot about it. So there's different categories, and I'm okay with the men that have to stay asleep at the wheel. It's okay for me, because some men aren't ready to wake up, and if we drag them into the light, that's just as bad as me selling my family short. That's just my piece on that. I've overthought it. Anybody else want to share? And then we're gonna.
I picked up a wallet from the floor.
The trickster's with us.
Okay.
It's not David.
I didn't look.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
First of all, when I think about how I was before and what after that, when before coming into the work, I held a lot of things in, and so part of my, when I did my career and all that was to kind of take that mask off and realize I'm okay, and to hear my voice, and so part of doing that is being comfortable with that voice. And Bud was actually on my first team. I remember I had never met Bud until I stabbed my first October, and I saw this man walk in. He was very calm, and then our staff meeting, he got pissed the fuck off. And I think that was the first. And then I
Hold
saw
it, confidentiality.
and then it was like, okay, I can get angry too. I got that. And so it was all sides. And Larry mentioned the fact that there were 4 people in this April weekend, and when I think about the range of how I've come between just not being, taking the mask off, there were several people in October. I told a lot of people to fuck off and lose my number, but yet I'm back. So when Bud said some people come back, and he left and came back, I was one of those people. I was almost done, but yet I was still back because I found me, and I found you all, and first of all, you all gave me strength to say I can say fuck off, and practice that, and realize now that there's a balance. Because when I think back, yeah, even though that was not king energy at all. That was not the blessing part. It was the king part, but it was not the blessing part. And I realized that whole loving spirit. It was like, yeah, I felt that I need to get out, but it was not the way that I moved or choose to move. And part of being in that world and in the world of creating that, I realized what I'm capable of now. Because even just to know that I had that part in my voice, wow. But even now, as I work with other men, it's like you have that voice, and use it, find it, and then use it. Thank you all.
Couple more.
Just before our energy dissipates, a week from Monday, we're doing, the IGRA faculty is sponsoring a workshop here on Monday night, where we're going to work a process that Brian and his team developed based on Robert Moore's work, where each man will get a chance to sit in each of the archetypes with the man, with that energy, and look at the shadow and look at the goal, and go home with some special, a little deeper understanding of what the archetypes are and what each of us carries. And it's open to the whole community, and that'll be 6:30, right?
7, I thought.
6:30 or 7. There's lots of emails floating around out there.
6:30.
Yeah, 6:30. Come early. And a great extension. Dr. Moore didn't have a chance to delve into that, but we will have one coming up, and would love to share that with any of y'all.
What's the date again?
August 4th.
A week from Monday.
A week from Monday, right here.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna get rolling back into it. Quick.
One more thing. I've noticed some men saying the word people. I got this from Michael Greenwald, my staff with multiple times. He brought it to mine and everyone else's attention on when I staff with him, how some of us will say, when we're talking specifically about men, and we use the word people. So I encourage, and that sunk in with me because I was guilty of doing that, and I probably still am, maybe not catching myself, but I encourage everybody when you're talking about men in particular, use the word man, not people. So,
Guy behind,
sense.
guy behind you.
My name is Michael, gifted Gay Buffalo. In terms of age, I'm probably one of the older, but in terms of MKP, I'm very young. I did my weekend in October of 2013. I just have a question, a clarification really to Dr. Moore. And Bud, thank you so much for sharing. I'm white, but I'm gay, and so a lot of what you were saying, although I, as a white man, I can hide my gayness. As a black man, I can't hide. So I really appreciate what you said, but in terms of being gay, I would hope that, I have found acceptance in this group, and I'm very appreciative of it. What my point is, the question I want to ask is, I belong to an organization called the Roman Catholic Church, and I'm also a priest, still functioning as a priest and as a gay man. I'd love to have a clear understanding of what a spiritual erection would be. I think
We all would.
need a spiritual erection along with their psychological erection. And my fear is that so often when we start talking about spirituality, I immediately think of fundamentalism and what it does is destroy instead of build up spirituality. So I would love to have, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this later, but just to ask Dr. Moore if he could just give me or us a description of what a spiritual erection would be like.
Well, let me say, I'd love to take time sometime before too long to actually get together with folks that want to talk about that and get into it in depth. I didn't try to do that today, and I won't try to do that. But there's a lot of people in this outfit that have spent a lot of time studying different spiritual traditions, and they bring that wisdom to the group, and that's one of the things I think is really great about this brotherhood. We have folks contributing from huge numbers of different spiritual tribes, and that's as it should be. And but that is a complex topic. I want to just say I meant to lift up what I've done with my little book. Now here it is. I wanted to lift up this little book because it came to me synchronistically. This is the one, Heart Without Measure, and it's about the great esoteric teacher Gurdjieff, who tried to bring together insights from a lot of different traditions. But what I love about this book, this is a book that talks about Gurdjieff's main disciple that he imparted his knowledge to. Her name, it's a woman. So I'm honoring a woman teacher about our work. Her name was Jean de Saltzman. She was French. And in this little book, it's a bunch of notes this young man took as he sought his own authenticity in the seminars. And it's simple, it's straightforward, and it really addresses Michael Gaiman's question there. And it lays out in a straightforward way, in such a profound way. I was very touched by it. And it says very clearly, mankind has an incredibly special role, and that is that the earth, from her point of view, the earth is not going to make it and be healed if the level of spiritual energies that are being poured into it all the time are of a very low, very primitive, very archaic nature, dark energies of abuse and domination. And so she says that the role of human beings is very clear. Men have to open up their role as portals to higher energies to come pouring into the world. Bring the energies of love, bring the energies of authenticity, bring the energies of commitment. And if you just read through this little, it's easy read, but it lifts up. I thought, my God, this is for our brotherhood, because they talk about how much temptation there is to just not take yourself seriously enough in the work, and to kind of spin off into a psychological and spiritual laziness. And this young man is so honest about his struggle for authenticity that I think it would inspire you if you took a look at this. What do we need? Heart without measure. So I just want to lift that up. and I'm happy. You know, I'm intended to live a long time, and I have got loads of stuff to talk to you about if anybody is interested. So.
Well, we're gonna let you bang on for a few more minutes
Okay.
right now,
All right.
so.
All right.
If it's your turn again, so. If you wanna take a few more minutes.
Yeah. Well, I've been blessed. And speaking of the spiritual issue, Michael Guyman knows that I have been blessed recently. You know, when I was 70, my energy was so low, I just thought it was all aging. I thought, well, that's it. That's it for Robert Moore. It's all downhill from here. But I'm very thankful that in the last 6 months or year, I've been able to access more energies through a lot of spiritual witnesses. There are a lot of guys in this outfit that have brought witness to me and have offered me and transmitted to me some of their spiritual insights, and it's been very healing to me, and it has made me more fierce and made me more competent, I think, made me more calm and more peaceful. And I just want to lift up all these men, many in this room, who have really been a portal to me of the energies I've been needing to be more fierce and especially more loving. So I'm happy to, I asked Christopher Pricing to bring catalogs of all my lectures that are available. I haven't renounced any of those teachings. I still believe it all. And there are thousands of hours of teaching around these topics in there, if you wish to study that stuff. But we need to think. See, there's always been this huge tension in the men's movement from the very beginning. The men's movement actually started with the work of Bly as a poet, Robert Bly, seeking to open up men's hearts to their grief and their pain through poetry. And I thought that's wonderful. I certainly have always needed that and need it more now. And I would like sometime soon many of you don't know anything about the origins of the men's movement. I would like to share with you more stories about how the men's movement got started. And one of the things that I would just share is in the early days there were a lot of conflict about whether there even ought to be a movement. And the idea, well, we want to be together, open our hearts, and read poetry, tell mythic stories, Michael Meade and others. And I started out very early saying, we need to be a serious movement. The women created a serious movement on the behalf of women, and we need to admire that and face up to how much less competent and effective we've been about that. And I was lifting up, well, you need to be more of a warrior. You got to have an open heart, but if all you have is an open heart, you're going to live in a swamp, because the pain goes all the way down to the turtle at the bottom of the universe. You're not gonna get rid of the pain by catharsis. It's an important thing. But there's got to be more integration in the personality, so that, here I'll give you the shorthand version. There is a Holy Grail. There is a chalice, which, if you know anything about the Catholic tradition about the chalice and the Eucharist, there's a psycho-spiritual reality that is symbolized by the Holy Grail, or by the chalice, the cup of the Eucharist. And it is about a cup that has to be formed inside your soul. It's about the inner temple. And if that inner temple of yours is not built strongly, but balancing the forces in your personality into a kind of a force field that can hold archetypal energy, or what I call dragon energy. If your cup is cracked, you will start to power up with energy, and then you'll fragment, and you'll go back and do more catharsis. And then if your cup is not, if you don't fix the cup, you will get that God juice in you, and you'll power up, but then you'll fragment, and all the God juice will flow down your pants legs, and you'll be standing in it, or you'll act it out with violence, or you'll act it out with dangerous sexual acting out, or you will act it out with rage attacks, and it's all wasted God energy. So it is the most important temple is the one that actually has to be constructed in your soul, so that you open to these great higher energies pouring into you that are enormously powerful, and the world is hungry for them. But it will, that energy will make you psychotic if you don't have enough people supporting you to create a vessel, that chalice inside you. If you work on constructing that chalice, one brick at a time, or the one piece of metal at a time, so that then you can actually hold more God energy in your personality, and then you can actually be a portal to channel that higher level of vibrations and energy into this suffering world. Now that's what that little book, Heart Without Measure, talks about. I've studied comparative spiritual traditions for 50 years. They all witness to the truth of that. And so Michael says, well, what about the spiritual thing? This organization made some decisions decades ago that it wanted to see itself as a sacred order of men who would try to organize enough to bring mature men into leadership in the world. And I am grateful for the things that have been achieved. It's miraculous what has been achieved, as Glenn is often reminding us. It's miraculous what's been achieved. But as John Kennedy said, we can do better. We can do better. So I don't know how long you have. If we had, I'd like to open it up. In fact, one of the things I'd love for us to do sometime is to have an open meeting where people can stand and speak their questions.
About 10 more minutes.
Okay. And so what we used to do in the early days of the men's movement at these Bly conferences, Michael Mead and Bly and Hillman and I, we spent a lot of time just in an open room like this full of men, and I was touched by what you said about the grieving in the room with those men. I've sat there with 200 men sitting there and weeping together for a long, long time to open up to their grief. I think we ought to have some grief days where we actually honor and host the grief in a loving way. We ought to do that. That reconnects us to the early days. So there's a lot that I would love to do in offering a way to connect yourself with the founding days of the men's work, and use that as a context for seeing the big picture about where we can go. So let me just ask you, if you have a question, just raise your hand, state your name, your animal name, and have at it. And Brian, you call time on us.
Yeah.
All right, I'm Huzzack. I'm loving Silverback. Woods, 1989. I have staffed before. And I wanted to speak to your comment about the chalice inside and the fracturing process that dissipates the divine energy that it can hold. And I'm not so, whatever, arrogant as to think as my chalice is the biggest, or even necessarily a very big one, but
well, a lot of us here know that ours is bigger.
Yeah. But I speak from personal experience, which is that I sense the fracturing process and the dissipation as a defense mechanism for myself.
Me too.
Because when the chalice starts to fill up and the container holds, then my vision becomes clear and I see things that bring great pain. And I can't deal with it.
Can't stand it yet, right?
And I find that the work of this organization has helped me to find a way to channel that pain and the anger and the shame in a way that lets it out without dissipating all my energy. And it's thanks to the men in this room and men like the men in this room, the founders, that I've discovered that there's another way to be able to cope with the pain of life with a clarity of vision as opposed to self-destruction or denying my own magnificence.
I hear your truth, man. And I just say, every one of us is seeking to nurture and build that vessel inside. Jung called it the alchemical vessel. You know, the Holy Grail, the witch's cauldron. It's all these container images. And it is a real thing you can gradually make stronger with the help of men. Because these men in this outfit build a cup together. In fact, for this weekend, you're building a chalice together. And if you build that chalice with the right intention and fierceness so that it can keep the chaotic energies at bay, you gotta have boundaries. Set that vessel so that the chaos that wants to come in and create unnecessary destruction, like you're saying, to hold that back with forcible, loving, strong boundaries. So I really appreciate you sharing that. I think you're right on target, and that's our ongoing work. The MKP is a great vessel. It holds masculine energy in a radically healthier way than has ever been true before in the world. And we can get better, but if I die soon, which I intend not to, if I die soon, one of the things that I'm going to be most grateful for in that process is the sort of the miracle of this new vessel for containing and helping men channel their power and creativity in a loving way. This is new in history, friends. I've studied it a long time. This has never existed. It's a new space in human history. And it's the hope of the world. It's the hope of the world. Yeah.
Before the next thing, I had heard at one point, ho was I hear you, and aho is I hear you and I agree. Could we have an aho for that if you hear and agree? Or you could say ho if you want. One,
Aho.
Thank you.
Your name, sir?
Garnet, strong white horse, just went through the June initiation.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
you touched upon the love which we hold within us. And this resonates for me in my experience as a child. I reached a point where I, out of great frustration perhaps when I was 10, 11, 12, felt it was
The Tibetan Buddhists have, I've been studying a lot thanks to a number of my Tibetan Buddhist friends here. I love this vision that they have of the radiance of the primordial heart of the Buddha that you are grounded in your deepest core. And to just let yourself play with the understanding that you're a portal to bring that, what I love to call the big love, the really big love, the big adequate love. And what you're feeling as a boy, that's coming from that place. And so you're right. I mean, this is the outfit that understands that for men to heal the world, they got to have their hearts open and loved first. Then everything transforms. Their aggression transforms. Their leadership transforms. Even the way they use their mind transforms. So I think that a lot of us could just raise our hands about the experience of the boy that we were, you know. But the good news is, I perceive his love is coming out now in you. Yeah.
Oh.
David Rich, Big Daddy, The Watcher, Dragon. I want to say thank you, Robert, for being here today. And I got such a big hit off the idea of the chalice. I learned over the years that I've always had a connection to my personal relationship with spiritual. I believe we all have it and that we don't access it. And I've had some connection to it that frankly has been effortless. I've always been overwhelmingly connected to energy.
Yeah.
When I was young, I was fortunate and unfortunate enough to be guided dangerously. And the metaphor that you put with the chalice is so interesting because energy is energy.
Energy's energy.
And,
Everything is energy.
And I'm overflowing with it. And,
Oh, yes.
And my chalice has always been incomplete and fragmented. And so when my overwhelming connection to energy would spill out of my cup onto my fist, that's how I would share it with you. And onto my foot, and onto my cock, and onto my mind, I would always share it with where it bled.
Yes.
And so over the years, I realized, right, it doesn't matter how much energy I have. That's not the value. We all have exactly the same amount of access to the energy.
Good dragon. That's right.
It's the container that allows me to present it from my heart, which is where I judge it makes the best impact. And so in this work, John and David and Steve, who have been around before me, saw me and said, so you're going to hurt people. You were hurting people. And that was okay. Do I want to do it different? What's my choice? What do I want? What do I need? Right? And so it was the ability to be authentic with the choice to grow. And so I bless you. This man's bravery to say, I'm God's energy. Right?
Yeah.
I'm part of.
Yep.
So I'm overwhelmed with that metaphor and that connection and that understanding that it doesn't matter to me how much energy I have. What am I going to do with it?
Yeah, you know, the way I've said that. Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. The way that I've tried to talk about recently is that we are all hooked up directly to the enormous energy of the dragon. And the dragon is the big it, I call. That's where all the energy comes from. That's where all the creativity comes from. That's where all your brilliant insights comes from. And I think that he has summarized quickly that the idea is to be able to receive that energy, have it not make you crazy or destroy your environment, and to be able to channel it creatively into your leadership. And as you say, the biggest thing is coming out of love rather than fear or your own ego narcissism. So thank you very much for that.
The last person.
Oh,
Last person. Larry?
Larry Mattingly, Standing Bear with White Eagle Spirit. Well, the conversation up to this point, no matter what the conversation was, brings me to this question. And it's that deep inner question that I'll ask in the context of the warrior, magician, lover,
Warrior, magician, yeah,
and
okay.
king. In this divine dance of my higher self, totally open to this personal ego self that has the wounds and the experiences and the defining moments, and I made all these stupid decisions, and I've done these kinds of things, and I've hurt people in my life. Is our work, is my work, I'm 67 now, I want to speed up this fucking process.
Oh.
Is our work, is my work in working with the chalice, is it about balancing the four archetypes, or is it to become a master of knowing this situation in which I may currently be sitting this is calling on, I need to step into kingship, I need to be a lover now. Oh, no matter what the hell I'm thinking, I've got to be in a space of love. Or is it situational, or is it a balance?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I just happened to, I don't know if any of you know anything about my work, but I in the last about 5 years, I developed these extensive diagrams so that the right brain could see the way it works, while the left brain tries to figure out if it wants to read that much. But in the diagrams in that catalog, it's all coded in there, and really the answer to your comment is really just yes, because it's like the great self. The Buddhists call it the diamond body. I didn't really know how much the Tibetan Buddhists talked about the diamond body until I started studying this diamond tradition, and it blew me away because they anticipated everything that I thought I discovered. And here is a little, what I recommend is a talisman. It's a calcium fluorite crystal. They occur naturally as octahedrons. And the code, what I call the great code that you're talking about in there in your psyche, that's a blueprint for your complete unfolding, is shaped just like this. You get one of these for your pocket and you reach in, and if you feel confused and chaotic, you reach in and you know that in the deepest part of you is the great code. And you hold that sucker and you're in touch with it. Your brain gets that
my brain back in touch.
It affirms that diamond in you really exists, and you just have to kind of read the blueprint and do the work to try to build the actual vessel in you. And one time, I just tell this last story. I had just discovered the octahedral shape. Jung had seen that the shape of the self was an octahedron, but he tried to figure out what the facets of it were, and he gave up on that because his protege Toni Wolff, a young woman, he was one of his lovers, and she saw there were four. She saw that there were 4 archetypal systems. She was my mother in all this. 4 archetypal systems. She applied them to the women, and so Jung turned away. He didn't try to go that way anymore. But I think he had discerned. He had intuited this. You think about a diamond, and this relates. See, because no interpretation you make from one perspective about your life is going to be complete. You got to think about it. Here is your complete, full, radiant self. And we'll look at this facet and it looks a certain way. We look at this facet, it looks another way. But you just need to know that it all holds together. You make total sense. And the work you're doing makes total sense. It's all coded and you have inner access to it. But I do recommend talismans for people to carry in their pockets when you're feeling chaotic. And I recommend this little calcium fluorite crystal. I was lecturing on that one night, talking to the group, a bunch of people, about, well, I think the code is an octahedron. And way back in the back, this guy says, Robert, is this what you're talking about? And he lifted up this gold calcium fluoride crystal, beautiful octahedron, and passed it around the room. I said, that's it. That's the God Self Diamond. So get you one of those. It's a nice little thing to help you stand against the chaos and the sense that you don't understand anything. You follow me? So anyway, are we wrapping up? We're wrapping it up now.
Shut our eyes on that.
Okay.
Just shut your eyes and picture that image. And it's a choice to be all you can be. And let's just return to the room when you're ready. And Robert, if you don't mind, I'd like you to stand in the center. We're going to send you some healing energy, so be around for a long time. Men, you mind standing up?
I'd appreciate it.
And this is sort of our thank you and healing energy, or whatever it would be for you. And if you need to speak a few words of blessing, you're open to do that.
Thank you.
Well,
It's my intention to be with you.
Keep that intention.
I'm going to take Nietzsche's fierceness with me into that procedure.
I'm
And-
hoping you win.
Yeah.
We'll see you on Thursday.
There you go.
Thank you for your wisdom, Robert.
I'm the one that's received the most from this brother.
Just gave you one.
And I'll see you soon.
Oh.
And for the men that